Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Hope you'll come back often. Hope you'll tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I want to turn to Father Ron Walters for the show's prayer. Father Walters, welcome.
Almighty God, just as our models imitate the beauty of your creation, may we imitate your kindness and generosity to us in our relationship with others. Bless us now and always. Amen.
Thank you, Father. We appreciate all that you do for our show. We have a show sponsor, who is Dennis Brennan, who owns Brennan's Model Railroading.
For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products for the O-scale market. Our flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. Its prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, we've developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Additionally, we offer craftsman kits that anyone can build with complete photographically illustrated instructions that assume you've never done this before. The Sonky Wanky Coffee Company is the latest and the fourth kit to be added to our ongoing and highly popular limited edition Ellison Tribute series. These kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level with Dennis' spin. The idea being that if Frank were alive today, this is how we would build these models using modern methods and materials. Use the QR code to visit our website.
Well, now I want to turn to Chris Horse, who is the person in charge of the My Bill segments on our show, along with his partner, Greg Cassidy. So, Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. Get the slide to show up here for a second. All right. Let's see. The next My Build is September 18th. And of course, it is featuring you. This one's a free-for-all. We've got a couple entries already. If you have not participated before, please do so. Send us whatever you got, whatever you're working on. If you've got something that maybe you're stuck on it. Maybe you need help with something. Can't quite figure out something. Please send us your photos, and we'll be sure to put those up, and we'll admire or help or whatever you need with your stuff. And if this thing, there we go. All right. To participate, please get your photos to me by September 15th. And yeah, I'm definitely out of the woods by then. Railrunner130@hotmail.com is where you send those. And if you have not participated before, please send a photo of yourself to use as your cover photo. Greg, was there anything you wanted to throw in there?
I want to thank everyone who participated in our August build that I was hosting. And I appreciate all of you who had sent stuff in then and came on the show and talked about your models. And I just hope people continue to take advantage of this. It's a great opportunity to show what you're working on.
Yeah, and thanks, Greg, for hosting. I appreciate that once again.
Sure.
All right, so there you have it. September 18th is a free-for-all. Please email your photos to me, railrunner130@hotmail.com to participate. Please try to get those to me by the 15th. Also, if you are not going to make it or think you might have some connection problems, please also include a brief description, including the scale. So that way, if you're not up, we can talk a little bit about it on your behalf. So that's all I've really had. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jim.
Thanks so much, Chris and Greg. I really do appreciate it. I do want to make a comment here. Chris and Greg do this as volunteers. They do it because they want to do it, not because they have to, not because this is part of their living expenses. They're volunteers. If you don't send in captions, as I call them, or information to go along with your photos, then what's happening is Chris or Greg have to sit there at the show. And while they're trying to show your photos and trying to interpret for you what your photo is showing and what you hope to be able to, that other people are going to show, to get benefit from looking at your photos, they're trying to figure out what on earth they're looking at. So what the problem is they're missing a lot of what you had hoped people would get from your photos. So the bottom line is what they see is the photo, and it could be the greatest model in the world. But if Chris or Greg is looking at it without any information, they don't know what scale it is, they don't know what you did special to it, they don't know who's the kit manufacturer, they don't have any information from you, then about all they can say is, here's Joe's photo. Now, shortly after the show, Chris or Greg sends me information about the photos that were shown and the captions or the information about each photo. Well, if all I get is photo Jim Kello, 1 through 8, that's all I can put in the article. That's all anybody is going to read about what Jim Kello's models that are shown in photos 1 through 8 are all about. So I beg you, because these are volunteers we're talking about, and we're trying to get as much information of benefit for you and for the people watching the show and reading the articles as we can. But that means that when you send in the photos, you've got to send the information about what the photo shows so that Chris and Greg have a starting point. When they show the photo on the show, they don't have to guess the scale. They don't have to guess what you're trying to get across. And if something has come up last minute where you're just not able to be there, not because you hadn't planned to be, but something came up, you still get all the benefit because Chris or Greg can talk about your photo as if you were the one talking about it sitting there. So I beg you, please not only send in the photo, but send in enough description about the scale and what the photo shows and the points that you want people to see in that photo. Include that information with it to Chris or Greg. And I have told Chris and Greg, if they don't get that information, then send you back an email and ask for it. Because I can't afford to lose Chris and Greg, and I've got to try to make their life easier, which means if you want to participate in this, you need to send not only the photo, but also the caption that goes with it. So thank you so much for your past participation. I hope you understand our need to try to do the best job we possibly can for you. But in order to do that, we desperately need your cooperation. Thanks again, Chris, Greg. I really appreciate everything you guys do. Our newsletter for September that Martin Brechbiel MMR edits is out. It was out the 1st of September, even with the holiday schedule. It's 54 pages, if you can believe that. A lot of people contributed to it. Thank you so very much. Martin Brechbiel did a fantastic job. Thank you so very much. I hope everybody enjoys it. If you do, or you don't, either way, I hope you'll at least send Martin something in way of an email and tell him that, because again, he's a volunteer. His payment for this is at least knowing somebody read it. And the only way that he's going to know that is if he gets some kind of a reply. So good, bad, indifferent, whatever you think of it, whatever ideas you have, whatever articles you'd like to include in the future, send Martin something. Thank you so much. Now I want to have Bob Davidson talk about our scholarship for this year. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. As everybody hopefully knows, we successfully last year achieved our goal and awarded 3 $2,000 scholarships. Please, if you missed the presentation, go up to YouTube and it's the July 31st?
Yes. Yes.
Episode, and you'll get to meet the 3 recipients who are not only great modelers, but really exemplary members of their communities. We couldn't be more happy with the 3 choices that we made this year. Now we're on to planning for the next year, the 2025-2026 academic year. And want to start out by just saying that we reached, as you may have heard, we had a challenge from an anonymous donor agreeing to match up to $500 in donations made up to tonight. And as of last week, we had surpassed that amount. So between what we raised from your generous donations and the matching gift that we'll get, that was just over $1,000, about $1,150. So along with the grant that we got from Amherst, that sponsors one of our scholarships for the coming year. So yeah, I mean it's just great. The support that everyone's given. I just updated the list up on the website. Please, these folks that have given so generously year after year, along with our sponsors, our corporate sponsors, and this year adding in the Amherst Show as a platinum sponsor, we can't thank you enough. So we'll obviously be continuing to ask for more resources. We are well on the way to meeting our goals for the coming year. But what we'd like to do is just keep this rolling along. And in order to do that, we need your help. Jim just talked about how we're all volunteers, and everybody who works on the scholarship, we are all volunteers. We put in our time. What we get out of it is the knowledge that we're helping the hobby that we love so much. We're helping these students that are so deserving, but we need some more folks to help us out. Specifically, we're looking for these 3 positions, people that can help us on the committee. First is as a train show liaison. One of the things I think that has really helped us spread the news about this has been our participation at so many train shows, as well as NMRA conventions and other group gatherings. But we need somebody to help us out with that. I've been doing it myself, but to have someone who could maybe assist with that would just be a great help. As of right now, we've got, I think, 6 full-size banners and 2 sets of tabletop banners that are available for these shows. Some of the banners are committed year-round to different folks that help us out, but we have quite a few. We just got 3 new ones. We have quite a few banners, and there's files for flyers, and all this it doesn't take much. Every show maybe takes 10 minutes to fill out a shipping form. We do have a FedEx account, so it's nothing that will come out of your own pocket. It's really just printing out a shipping label and bringing it to the local FedEx office. So if you can, if you do have about an hour a week that you could help us out, and it's not every week, please get in touch with Jim or myself. And that could just be at ntmms@newtracksmodeling.com. The other couple of other things, we're looking for a train club liaison. And this is mostly just to get the word out. We're not asking for money necessarily, but what we want to do is get train clubs to start talking about this scholarship. We feel that's a great resource, not only just to spread the word, but that's also a great resource for us to reach some of these students. So please, if you're a member of a club, if you feel, that you have resources that you could help us research where clubs are so we could reach out to them to spread the word, again, please get in touch with us so maybe you can help us out with that. And finally, an applicant liaison. This is really where we kind of need the most help. If anyone out there is an educator or retired educator or who works in the, anywhere in a school district or is involved with a college or anything like that, we need someone to help us come up with some ideas on how we can better reach these students. We have, honestly, we reached out to all the collegiate train clubs. There were about a dozen of them. We sent out 4 or 5 different emails to them. Didn't get a single response. So we need some help in trying to reach these folks, because the way this scholarship program will grow is when the demand is going to exceed what our resources are. Right now we're keeping up with it, but we would like to see this really take off. Because again, remember, we are the only national scholarship program that's being done by volunteers. Walters is still doing theirs, which is a corporate sponsored operation, but we're the only one who are just doing it by volunteers who love this hobby, and we're trying to reach these kids. So if you can help us with any of these things, please reach out. I'll put my personal email in the chat. But certainly you can just get to us at ntmms@newtracksmodeling.com. So that's kind of what I got for tonight, Jim.
Thank you so much. And again, I hope that anyone out there that is viewing this now live or sees this later, I hope that you'll consider helping us, because this is a worthwhile project for these kids. If you'll look at the July 31st show where these kids were there and talked about what this meant to them and how this is going to be a benefit for their future, I think that you'll understand how important this can be to the future model railroaders in our hobby. So I hope that you'll give some real thought to volunteering and providing some help here. We're not asking for a tremendous amount of time, but we do need some help. So thanks so much, Bob. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now we've got 2 organizations here that are coming out with new products. And I want to introduce both of them individually and have them talk to you a little bit about what their new products are all about and new opportunities are all about. The first one is Chris Course. And Chris, you've heard about a few minutes ago talking about the My Build. Well, now Chris Course is going to talk about his own company and his plans for the future.
Thanks, Jim. Hopefully this will set up here. There we go. Okay. All right. It's actually been in a bunch of magazines already. Model Railroader published it a month early because I guess that's how they roll. But we purchased Sugar Pine Models. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that product line, but I found out where it ended up and went off and pursued it. And I think it's actually going to be a pretty decent product line for us that we're going to slowly convert over into more modern kit forms, such as laser cut wood, 3D printing, moving on to Tichy doors and windows for the most part, those sorts of things, using basically applying modern technology to old kits or an old kit design. And we're actually starting off with the first three, or the first off is the Georgetown Firehouse, and that's an HO scale. With this particular kit, I managed to go back and figure out that some of these kits, there's a little bit of information out there about them. Some kits, there's nothing. This one, the Georgetown Firehouse, actually does exist. It's now the Georgetown, Colorado Firemen's Museum. So I went back and pulled basically pulled the original dimensions off of the kit, and applied some new laser cut changes to it. And here we have the Georgetown Firehouse in HO scale. And it actually has a it actually has a 3D printed fluted flute for the chimney on there. And one thing you're not seeing in here that's actually in it too is up in the bell tower there, you've actually got a 3D printed bell as well. So this kit is now available. It was listed as originally as a pre-order, but we've gotten the instructions done, and the first few kits have gone out the door on it. And let's see. Yeah. Oh, there's the bell on the left photo there. And it actually features some rail scale shingles, real cedar. And then next up, we have the farm style water tank, which is also available in HO scale. This is one of the kits that I was very intrigued by when I managed to pick up this product line, because it is such a unique little kit. And I think you could, even though it's unique, I think you could do a lot of different things with it. So that's one product that we were quick to put into the lineup. And we've got some more photos of it here. And it's actually a pretty simple design. It's not terrible to put together. And in fact, it's a terrible photo, but I managed to put an indicator mark for the water level in there. I think it's got a float that was actually in the real tank. I think I'm not sure that this kit was a real building, but it is very representational of the style of water tanks that you find in California. All right, next up we have the water and tool car, which and that's also an HO scale. This actually is kind of something I was working on anyway, and then I discovered that it was actually with a few modifications, it was actually one of the original Sugar Pine Models kits. I don't know how many of them were produced, because I did find going through the literature, I found a catalog and it had this crossed off of it. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. I've got the stuff to do this. So I went back and pulled some, basically pulled three different kits together, and with a few modifications, and here we go. So the water and tool car, it's actually, this one's actually been selling very well. And there's actually a little bit of modification that's been done to it as well, because there's a walkway that's missing off of this. It's actually on it now, but off of the water tank, and it's also got some 3D printed tank clamps on there too. And there's another photo, or another 3 photos of it. And then those are the first 3 products, but there's a ton of other products that we're going to slowly work into the lineup over time. Sam's Supply Store, that one should go pretty quickly. The Smelter Works, that one will definitely go very quickly, along with the Courthouse. I think that one's about half designed already. But I do want to get to a few other things like the HO scale sand house. I think that one will be fairly easy for people to put together. On the left side there, you see the two stall engine house. That one I'm actually going to take some time and do it right. That one's going to have the full ridge beam and rafters in it. So we're going to take our time. So that one's not going to be immediately, well, it's not going to be, that's a long-term goal, shall we say. Also, another long-term goal is you see the Drake well there in the bottom right. There were a few other products that came along with the sugar pine line, and this Stewart Products Drake well is one. It's actually going to take some time to deal with, because you see the tower there on the right. That's actually what the wood looks like. So I've got to figure out how to get that scribing done. And then we'll go ahead, and it's actually got a lot of castings with it as well. All right. And then the one kit that I really wanted to do pretty bad, part of the sale was the Ye Old Huff and Puff Workshop. I could not wait to get hold of this thing and do it right. But then when the stuff came in, there was 80 of these things in. So I'm selling them off for $10 a piece. So if you want a Ye Old Huff and Puff Workshop, which if you look on the internet, it's a very rare kit. Well, I've got a ton of them. So $10 a piece. Place your order and you'll have it very quickly.
And where do they place their order?
It's ConowingoModels.com, and use the discount code NEWTRACKS to receive 10% off of the Conowingo Models products now through next Wednesday. So that's it. There you go. ConowingoModels.com. And like I said, we have purchased sugar pine models, and we're gonna fold those into our lineup. I think it's a good fit, and hopefully it should be a good business venture for us, I think. Are there any questions before I hand everything back over to Jim?
Yeah, Chris, is the new tracks code one word or 2 words?
One word, just like it was in there.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
I wish you the best of luck with it. Are you looking at any other companies, perhaps?
I actually was approached last week about another company, but realistically, I can't afford it.
Gotcha. Well, it depends on how many of these $10 kits you sell.
There's not enough.
Thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.
Well, now I want to introduce Seth Newman and Phil Edholm for the next new product for Seth's company. So Phil, Seth, welcome.
Let's see here. Well, thank you. It's always good to be here. And
welcome.
I'm going to let Phil talk here because my business model is largely working with collaborators. And Phil came to me with a just wonderful operations tool. And he's got a video and he'll talk about it a little bit. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can get these and what to do if you have a great idea like Phil's.
Let me see. I will share this. And let me pull this up. So very quickly, what I talk about today is something that I think is pretty exciting from an operations perspective. And I know we have some operators here, some people who probably don't like to operate, but the reality is a lot of us like to uncouple cars and break them apart, and picking them up with your hands, and that doesn't necessarily do great things for details. So this was actually an idea that came out of using a lighted pick that actually is available from Micromark, but it basically is a lucent tube. And 2 things about it: it doesn't have a great feel for being a pick to actually uncouple, but also because the light comes out of the tube, it kind of tends to overwhelm everything. So looking at that, and the comment we made was, well, gee, it'd be great to still have a traditional bamboo skewer, which seems to work well because of some of the grain that's in the skewer. Thought was, well, gee, can you do that with a 3D printed collar and just use a standard, pin light type pin light. So what you see here is essentially what we've come up with. We started off with these two at the top, which are basically just a traditional bamboo skewer. You can replace the skewer, you can cut it to the length you want. One of the things Seth really likes using is a number 16 tapestry needle. So these two are number 16 tapestry needles, and the last two here are using a dental pick. So the idea is with a dental pick, you actually get a little bit different coupling. And what we've done is we're doing these all in black, which gives you really concentrated light in orange, which is a little bit more diffuse and you see it. So let me play a little quick video and kind of show you why we thought this was such a cool little tool.
Introducing the Light Pick, the best uncoupling tool for model railroad operations. The challenge in uncoupling cars on a model railroad using traditional skewers or other tools is the ability to clearly see the coupler and to insert the tool into the precise position in the coupler to enable smooth uncoupling. The Light Pick solves this by providing accurate light right where it is needed. Even in dimly lit areas or where shadows between cars makes it hard to see the coupler, the Light Pick makes it easy to see the coupler and to insert the pick into the precise spot to optimize uncoupling. The Light Pick comes in 3 pick options with the 3D printed collar available in black or high visibility orange. The Light Pick includes an industrial-grade pocket flashlight that uses 2 AAA batteries that are included. The bamboo skewer Light Pick uses the popular bamboo skewer as the uncoupling pick. The skewer version of the Light Pick is designed to insert a skewer and hold it in place for uncoupling. The skewer can be replaced if it breaks or if it wears out. The length of the skewer can be adjusted by cutting it to the length desired. Another option is a number 16 tapestry needle as the uncoupling tool. This is Seth's personal favorite. The tapestry needle Light Pick is made with an extension to put the needle at the right distance for uncoupling. The dental pick version of the Light Pick incorporates a standard dental pick. The dental pick has graduated whiskers to fit into the coupler and make uncoupling easier. The Light Pick is made with an extension so the dental pick can reach the coupler. Many modelers swear by dental picks as the ideal uncoupling tool. In addition to uncoupling, the Light Pick can be used to illuminate car reporting numbers. This is especially valuable in tight spaces like yards. Buy your Light Pick at Model Railroad Control Systems. Use the QR code to order yours today.
So
That's the beauty. The beauty of PowerPoint here is it doesn't want to let me change this. There we go. So basically, I got 2 slides here at the end. You can order these on Model Railroad Control Systems. That's Seth's site. One of the reasons I think this really works well with Seth is Seth sells a lot of things for operations, and these really are for operators. So the bamboo skewer one are $13 each. The tapestry needle and the dental pick are $14 each. One of the things we've had a lot of requests for is saying, I really don't know which one I want. So we actually have we've called a 3-way bundle that basically includes one of each of the Light Picks, basically a bamboo skewer in black, and then in orange for both the dental pick and the tapestry needle, and just one flashlight. So that lets you kind of try all of them. And like I said, just if you just jump on to this is a QR code. I'll put a link in the chat to the site. Just something that we think makes a lot of sense to have on the site.
yeah, this is a wonderful tool, and Phil came to me and it was about the PCR convention in April. I think we started talking about doing this, and we've given out some samples at various op sessions we've been to, and they've been really well received. because most operators carry a pick and of some sort, and as you can see, there's people who like the ones with a little friction, like a skewer or the dental pick, and then if you slack them up a little bit, the steel pin works well. So there's a couple of different styles of doing it, and Phil's done the design so that we can support any of those. And you also have the flashlight. So again, by having it integrated with the pick, the light's where you need it to be. Very often, just either for aesthetic considerations or just because it's hard to light the back of your layout, it's hard to see what's going on in the back, particularly if there's several intervening tracks like in a yard. And then the other thing is, trying to read those numbers. And, looking around at the photos here, I can see you're all about my age, and the eyes maybe aren't as good as they used to be. Maybe you got the great cataract surgery and now you can't see up close very well. Having a little more light makes all those things wonderful. And you've already got the pick in your hand with the light, and you can read those car numbers and reporting marks, even if they're beautifully weathered. So it's a great tool that gives you what you need and solves a common problem.
Guys, I think it's a great idea. I really do. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here this evening and showing it to everybody. Anybody have any questions for Seth or Phil?
Larry McDonald here. The dental picks, would that be long enough to fit down between O-gauge boxcars?
Well, Phil's O-scaler, so he can, he's probably thought about that more than I have.
It is going to be long enough, yes.
For standard gauge?
For standard gauge.
Okay, yep. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Phil, I'm up on this. I'm not seeing where you can get that combination.
Oh, so the problem with that was, I think I actually wasn't sharing my slides completely at the time, but it's going to be up there soon. Okay. We just decided to put it up there, so it'll be up there very quickly, and then it'll be available. They'll ship probably towards the end of the month. We got the narrow gauge convention to go to and some other stuff, so I wanted to say it'll be a few weeks, but if you order them, then we'll get them all shipped out at one time.
Yeah, it's always good if you order early, if you don't mind banking with us for a week or two, because it helps us schedule production more efficiently. We're volunteers too, right? This is a retirement business for me, and Phil does absolutely everything for not just New Rail, but for PCR. He's our superintendent, the Coast Division, and we got a lot of things going on. So if you can help us know what you're going to need, it's a lot easier for us to make what you want when you want it.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Don't forget our scholarship, by the way, Seth. Okay, guys. Talk to you later. Now I want to start the show tonight. The first segment is O-scale modeling. David Schultz is the host for it, and O-Scale Central is the sponsor.
I'm David Vaughn of O-Scale Central. O-Scale 2-rail, models built to 1:48 scale and running on 2-rail track, is the best kept secret in model railroading. We're pleased to team with Jim Kello to introduce O-Scale 2-rail to New Track's viewers. O-Scale 2-rail is for modelers. At twice the scale and 8 times the mass of HO, O-Scale's heft and ease of modeling create an outstanding model railroading experience. O-Scale 2-rail modeling is as varied as railroading itself. Modern era, transition or old time, standard gauge or narrow. A wide variety of models is available at affordable prices. There is a supportive community and lots of shows, clubs, and events. You can explore O-Scale 2-rail by going to our website, oscalecentral.com. You will find information about the scale and how to get started, as well as a free, searchable, scale-wide product and service guide and listings of coming O-Scale events. You will also find information about how to join O-Scale Central. We promote O-Scale 2-rail and support modelers in the scale. When your eyes are going bifocular, when you need fresh challenges, keep O-Scale 2-Rail in mind. Check us out, oscalecentral.com. Thanks.
And David Schultz is the host for this segment.
Good evening, everyone. Jim, how are you?
I'm great.
Well, that's good. It's been a couple of month hiatus for me. I was working at the museum all summer. They were a little short-handed on the railroad, so I had to step in. And so I've been gone for the last couple of months. Sorry about that. But anyway, tonight the latest thing in O-Scale was the Katie announced their 2-rail O-Scale truck. And it comes in Proto 48 also. So you can either do 5 foot or 4 foot 8.5. Kind of a clever design. The bolster is split right down the middle, and it isn't sprung, but it does equalize. And then the brakes, and I know this can be hard to see, but the brakes that are on here, there's a little clip that holds the two halves of the bolster together. And these things track really well. But anyway, I can get my photos set up here. All right, come on. All right, here we go. I'm not like a lot of these guys. I'm a little behind the times on technology. But anyway, and this is not a paid advertisement for Katie, but I thought this was pretty exciting to have a new truck available. Since the brass imports are really struggling right now with Korea not playing nice anymore, and prices have just skyrocketed on those. I think a typical pair of freight trucks now are around the $60–$70 mark. It's kind of incredible. These here, these are 5 different styles that they've come up with. They've got your 50-ton, they've got your 70-ton, they got the arch bar, and then they got 2 of the modern 100-ton roller bearing. So great selection. And I've seen these on eBay for about $35, and I know some hobby shops have them for even a little less. So the $40 price tag they're showing here, I think, is what they may have had for a suggestion, but you can get a little bit better price. I've even seen them on eBay at this point for around $34 a pair. But anyway, this is the way they come. This is the what they call the Bentendorf 50-ton. And this was Proto 48, naturally. That's what I'm into. And you can buy this. This is something they sell separately, but this is an bolster adapter. This will make Weaver, Lionel, trying to remember, especially the Lionel. This is the bolster that will adapt to the Lionel. And this really clever. It takes literally less than 5 minutes to put a pair of Katie trucks on any Lionel, Weaver, MTH, Atlas, any of the cars. It's like the Lionel. I don't think they've got kind of a hole where the truck attached, and they've got a piece that fits on either side. You screw it together and then screw the truck to it. It's rather clever how they did it. Here's an Atlas car. This is the original trucks that came with it. And so here's the pair of trucks we're going to put on it, the 100-ton roller bearing trucks. And these are the adapter. These are the pieces that go over the bolster that's on the car. And you get a sprue of these. So there's many different sizes, fit on many different cars. This one happens to be for the Atlas. You can see here, this is where it slips over the bolster, or the pin that was where the truck originally mounted to. Oh, I got my photos out of order. This is another Atlas car with the Atlas truck. Kind of the same deal here. Oh, my pictures are all out of order here. Anyway, here's one of the cars that was converted. They make a bolster for even this an Atlas trailer train type thing, piggyback flat. Oh boy, yeah, my pictures are really out of whack here. I don't know what that's doing there. All right, well, anyway, the trucks screw on there. I'm missing some photos. The trucks screw on there. Really a neat conversion. Real simple. And I think they're going to do well with this. I know the price tag seems a little high at $35, but when you're considering that about the only other truck available is, I think Athearn is still making the Bentendorf truck. And they're about $10 a pair. They're made out of Delrin, where the Kadies are all metal. double insulated wheels, and there's no brake detail. Still a decent truck. I like to buy them whenever I'm at shows and such. But anyway, these are a nice alternative, and I've heard from a few people that they track incredibly well. So anyway, I was going to do this bit here. I was at a steam show this weekend, and I thought this was just funnier than all get out. Didn't have much to do with railroading other than here's an A and B unit on a tractor. And I'd never seen anything quite like that. And then introducing the BAB unit, which I'd never, they took 3 farm tractors and hooked them together into and this is a combined total of 200 horse. And I just thought it was hilarious that somebody actually went through the trouble to take 3 farm tractors and make B units and A units out of them. So anyway, kind of a short program tonight, but that's what I've got as far as the Athearn trucks are $14.95 according to Martin. So they're about double the price, but you're getting brake shoes, you're getting metal, all around metal. A very nice truck. So that's about what I have for tonight, Jim.
What are the wheels? Are the wheels metal or plastic?
Nope, the wheels are metal on these. They're the same metal that they use on their couplers. I'm not sure. It's kind of a, like the old Zamek, except Katie apparently has got a process, because I've never heard of their couplers or any of their metal products ever falling apart. So they've corrected whatever the problem was with that zinc rot that would appear on a lot of the Zamek models. Katie is also talking about, so if anybody calls Katie and orders these directly from them, you can put a bug in their ear about possibly asking for the shelf coupler. There's talks that Katie's thinking about building a shelf coupler in O scale. So anybody that calls Katie, put a bug in their ear just to show them. Now, I know that these sold out when they first came out, and they've been producing these, they're back in stock again. But I was pleased to hear that they sold out instantly when they produced them. I bought a pair, and I'm most pleased with them. But I don't have much of a running lab, but I do go over to my son James and watch him run his stuff around him, and these things track incredibly well.
David, from my understanding is we can pretty much forget the brass trucks.
That's kind of what was mentioned at Chicago. We had a couple of producers there, and I won't give out the names, but anyway, they were kind of telling a tale of woe that the few builders that are left willing to work with Americans on building model railroad stuff have doubled their prices. And so I know the passenger car truck, I think for him to make any money at all, he's got to sell the passenger car trucks for like $160, $170 a pair. And he just figures there aren't a lot of people in the scale that are willing to shell out that kind of money for a brass truck. But these kind of give hope.
So what's the alternative?
Well, that's it. White metal, you can still buy the old K-line. Scale City now owns that. They make a 41N truck, but they're white metal, which tends to be a little soft. Some people won't use them. I will use them on certain cars, but you got to be careful with them.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of alternatives. 3D printing, of course, is the next big thing. I do know of a guy who's making caboose trucks, and he 3D prints in a wax-based resin, and then they burn out the resin, and they actually just pour the brass right in on top of it. And he's selling his trucks for around $50 a pair for these caboose trucks. So there is some alternatives. If you know somebody who can do 3D printing, the trouble with a lot of these 3D printers are they're willing to do a few pair, but not get into a big run on these things. So
David, it seems to me if brass is going to be that expensive, and it's probably not going to be around a whole lot longer, it would seem to me that this might be a role for this O-Scale central organization to get involved in, to maybe give the manufacturers some help trying to figure out, what modelers would want what. I mean, because this is really going to be a serious problem for O-Scale, it seems to me.
Yeah, it is. It's it's going to be tough, and a lot of the older trucks weren't. There are a lot of trucks out there. They're 17/64ths, which people aren't happy with. Some people refuse to have anything plastic on their railroad, which whatever. To each his own. I personally didn't care. The Athearn Delrin trucks always ran really nice. Yeah, they're lacking in a few details, but if you want to, you can have add those details to them. with a little bit of effort, so it's not too bad. But yeah, you're right. O Scale Central could get involved in maybe helping, direct some of these people to produce a truck that's somewhat reasonable and yet allows us to build the cars we want to build. Especially for a scratch builder like myself, buying passenger car trucks. Luckily, there's a lot of the old Chemtron trucks out there, passenger wise, but they're not necessarily 100% accurate. Wasatch, of course, made some of those beautiful trucks I've ever seen passenger. And I thought it was a little crazy at $100 a pair. And now they're talking $165, which that's way out of my league.
Yeah. You might want to mention it to other people on the board of OSC, because it does seem to me that this is the kind of thing that an organization like OSC could really be a benefit to the O-scale hobbyist.
I will do so in the next board meeting, which is around the middle of this month. So
Jim and David, just to be fair to David Vaughn, this is actually David Vaughn's company, and he has he's actually been working on these. These are 3D printed, 3 different kinds of trucks on his website.
Oh,
so this is Wit and Wisdom Models website. Okay. And he's actually got 3 different truck sets, and they're 108, I think, for a 3-pair pack, which I guess is 6 trucks.
Yeah.
So anyway, just FYI.
Yep, that's nice. Very nice.
Great. That's great. Maybe he'll take care of solve the problem.
David, it's Pat here.
Yeah.
I bought a whole set for 6 heavyweight cars in aluminum extruded from MTH 2-rail about 3 years ago. And they're beautiful trucks. They're all steel wheels, and they're hooked up for lighting too.
Oh, okay. Yep. I never considered that. I haven't seen. I don't buy a lot of MTH or Atlas stuff. I do most of my own building and such, so I haven't really seen many of the trucks and stuff. I wasn't sure what I know Atlas had. Was it Atlas that came out with some of those Burlington and California Zephyr cars? And I see that they were selling the trucks separately. They appeared to be fairly decent looking.
These are all
that's
steel.
Interesting. Yeah, that's nice.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. And Phil, thank you for the information about David Vaughn. That's really helpful. So
yeah, you think I'd have been on that.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate
it. You're welcome, Jim. We'll see you later.
Yes, sir. Well, now I want to turn to High-Rail Modeling. And the sponsor for that is Millhouse River Studios.
Millhouse River Studio builds model train working accessories that are made to last generations. Millhouse River products are built out of aluminum and have scale brass details that even the most demanding scale modeler will appreciate. Since our industry entry in 2009 with the introduction of our flagship turntable, Millhouse River has continued to add new, innovative products, like our scale transfer table, rotary coal dumper, flood coaling tower and, most recently, a working conveyor that transports coal from the dumper to the loader. All of Millhouse River Studio's stunningly realistic products are currently available in O-scale. We are adding new scales on some products, including the upcoming release of an HO scale turntable featuring our aluminum construction and stunning brass details that is big enough to handle a big boy locomotive. When it comes to your layout, don't settle for less, get Millhouse River Studio.
And normally the host for this segment is Dennis Brennan, but Dennis is out of the country. He's in Ireland for a while, and he asked Paul Reeves to fill in for him tonight. And I'm so pleased that Paul agreed to do it. And I think you'll really enjoy what Paul has to say. So Paul, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm not sure that I can make up and become Dennis Brennan, but I'll do my best. I have known Dennis for a long time. We go really way back. I got into this hobby, ironically, after I saw an article in Classic Toy Trains around 1989 or 1990. involving a 3-rail, high-rail layout that I thought was the most realistic thing I had seen in O-gauge at the time. So it started a little bit of a fire and a goal to have a layout at some point that would pass, inspection from those who put a lot of stock in the things looking real and being a realistic presentation of different scenes. So I also own a O-scale kit company that is really, I got that from Jeff Grove at Carolina Craftsman Kits. I purchased the O-scale version of that, and I've had a really good time. But boy, did I start behind the 8 ball. I didn't really have any experience with kits and building. I had experience building them, but not preparing them for kit building. And so far, it's been a good ride, though. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But one of the things I wanted to show you, if I can share my screen here. Let's see. Let's see. Can you see that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure my computer is not doing it.
No.
Okay, hold on just a minute.
So let me make a suggestion. When you share
Right.
share a screen, share the upper left image. That's actually your screen. Everything else is just a video image. If you share the upper left screen, that's what you see, and that's what we'll see.
Okay. Is that helpful?
Yeah, we see now the picture in the middle,
Okay.
and you can go ahead and blow it up to full size down there on the bottom right.
Okay. What I want to show you here is
yeah, there you
I was trying to find a way to display the kits that I have for sale. So I took some 2-inch blue foam, painted it a flat back. The things you see here is basically just pieces of shingle, roofing shingle, that I used a rattle can to paint. I used a white rattle can paint, and it turned out to be a nice secondary road here. And so that was to start this diorama. And let's see. Now I need to get out of it. So what happened after this is I made a bed and covered this with a, oh, sorry. This is the shingle. As you can see, I took a little thing to cut the blue foam, made a little bit of a ditch here to show it. I've never seen a layout with ditches, so I thought I'd put ditches in there. And this was sort of the format. This is just, this is dirt. There is some.
You need to share screen.
Okay, sorry. And, all right, can you see that?
No.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Again, this is the shingle. This is just dirt. I covered the blue foam with Elmer's white glue, put on dirt, trash, whatever else to do that. And then this became, and I'm just showing this to you because while, you know, I guess I deal in 3-rail as far as my own taste, this scene would be appropriate for scale, it'd be appropriate for 3-rail, it'd be appropriate for narrow gauge. And it was not, it took maybe an afternoon to do this. And so I just want to encourage you to maybe not discount high rail until you can consider that how it looks in this particular scene right here. So the next thing that I wanted to show was this scene. And all right, one of the kits that I put out is called a Mel Pouch Barn. It's a very simple kit to put together. You can, it's basically just got 4 walls. There's also a shed in the back. But one thing I wanted to share with you was most barns that I see around where I'm in South Carolina, most of them are old and dilapidated. But what I did to get this coloring was I mixed a couple of shades of hunter stain and just painted it with a brush. And it came out unique, but it looks, in my opinion, looks weathered. And that kit took 2 evenings to do, including the painting. The roof is corrugated paper, and I used pan pastels to weather that and to give it an old look. On the back, which you can't see, I inserted some tar paper over where the metal had failed, and it turned out to be a really nice model. There is now, I don't have a photograph, there's a fence line going on here using Woodland Scenics barbed wire fencing, and it turned out really, really well. And this kit, again, very simple. There's bracing on the inside. The rafters are glued on, just 2x6 scale, 2x6. And again, it took 2 nights or 2 evenings to finish up that model. The next thing I wanted to show you is this is Miller Brothers lumber. And this is a kit that is, again, it looks challenging, but in essence, what this is these are piece by piece lumber that's glued onto a mat board that's been cut for the windows and doors. And basically this consisted of me taking the wood strips, and I'm gonna confess to you, the wood strips are coffee stirrers that I got on the internet, a lot cheaper than scale lumber. They turn out to be about a 2x10 or 2x8 by scale. So these were, again, soaked in various shades of hunter stains. By the way, I use hunter stains. There's some really other good products out there that give a nice result. And then after I dried them, I mixed them all up and just pulled them randomly to give the different colors here. This turned out to be, it worked out well. As you can see, though, I did not paint the 2x4s on the roof to keep the rolled roofing down. So I'll have to work on that. But this is another shot of the same building. Again, this has sort of a two level presentation if you want to build it that way. Got a loading dock here in the back, and a crappy sign that says the office is in the front. That's the other side view. This is corrugated paper that I spray painted with black, flat black. Then I spray painted it with stainless steel, and then went over it with some weathering pan pastels. And you know, it's one thing I have found. I used to be so afraid of weathering things, but I mean, it's really hard to screw up something that's out in nature. I have found that you cannot use the color purple anywhere. I don't see that in nature. So those are, and I've got some other photographs of this. Another thing, that the narrow gauge convention is next week. So I think in honor of that, I was gonna show to you this picture. And let's see. This is a critter shed. This kit has an interior structure, 2x4s for the interior bracing. The floor is a solid floor, but you can cut the floor to run the tracks all the way in. This display didn't show that, but this is would fit a narrow gauge engine or locomotive, and probably not the entire locomotive. The tender would be out the back, which I think sometimes is prototypical anyway. And so that's the critter shed we have. One of the things that I have been excited about is McCormick, South Carolina is on the border with Georgia. And I was going through there one day on the way to Atlanta, and there is a building called the McCormick Flour Company later named the Dorn Mill. And Cyrus McCormick bought the land for this particular building, and the Dorn family built a flour mill there. Originally, it was cottonseed oil, and now it is a mill. And this is the first kit that I did on my own. I took photographs of the prototype, condensed it down so I could manage it, and it went together beautifully. And I'm really pleased with this. Let me get back to where that is, and I'll show you some other photographs. This building looks really complex. This is a side view. This is the rear of the building, and you're looking on the right side. This all goes together though by tab and slot. If you follow the instructions, each wall is constructed beginning with the front, left wall, back wall, right wall. And then after you come together those walls, the tower holding the water tank goes in last, but it all fits together very easily. And it looks very complicated, but it's not. But the brickwork on this, by the way, I didn't cut it, someone else did, is really good. And when I first found the prototype, this tower right here was there, but there was nothing on top of it. I couldn't figure out why the tower was there. And then I found a photograph from 1904 showing the tank on the side of the building where it had fallen off. I'm sorry, 1954, where the tank had fallen off. And then I found out why the tower was there. Really an intricate design. Another view of the side. And I used Robert's mortar to put in the brickwork grooves. This is India ink stain. The metal roof is again pan pastels. I think this roof, this is a corrugated one-piece roof. I don't think that was probably prototypical, but this was the pilot model. So this is about 14 inches by about 9 inches. So it's a pretty big model. And again, you can also build this model on 2 levels if you choose to. So this is called the Dorn Mill. And I've had some interest in this. I think though, one of the challenges facing O-scalers and O-gaugers, high railers, is space and size. And we try to be cognizant of that. But most of Jeff's kits that I purchased were wooden kits. I've been trying to branch out and do more of a brick facade kind of a show for the kids. So I want to show you some high railer, if I can find it here. Let's see.
Oh, I hate to say this, but we've got a few more minutes.
Okay. Well, let me, I'll close with this. The draw for me for high railing was I had a lot of 3-rail track on hand, so I didn't want to change over. But I found that if you take a little bit of time, create the scene that you're looking for, then you can make it look realistic. And in some, I've read this before, and I don't know that I really believe it, but if the scene looks right, you won't even notice the 3rd rail. I guess that's easier for us 3rd railers to say that, but I've really enjoyed that, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on this show and share some of my things. There's some really good modelers on here. There's also some excellent kit companies and some other companies providing services, and I really feel very privileged to be here, and I appreciate your attention, and I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Paul, Larry McDonald here. Can you put your company name that up in the chat?
I will. I sure will. Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe your website and telephone number and personal home address. And
I'll give you my tax ID number for some help on that too.
Anybody have any more questions for Paul? Paul, I hope you'll come back often.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, now I want to turn to Sherri Johnson for her to talk about the difference in technology that's facing our hobby. So Sherri, welcome.
Sherri had to leave because her computer system was going down during the middle of a storm.
Okay. Then let me go to Martin Brechbiel MMR for his Scratch Builders Corner. Martin has been absent for a month. He wanted to take a break. He needed the rest. You all were asking too many questions and just being too rude. So Martin just wanted time to relax and, you know, get his modeling skills back up to stuff. And so, but he's back tonight and we're so happy he's returned. Welcome, Martin.
Yeah. Well, I'm not quite sure what to do with that introduction, but maybe perforate it and put it on a roll for later. Anywho, where was I? Let's see. Yeah, I'm back. Okay. Come on. There you are. Now, let's put this somewhere where it's out of the way. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, we're going to build something. And we're going to build what I call the towerless house, which would imply that there is a house with a tower that I'm going to remove or something to that effect. And that house is derived, the one we're going to build is derived from this one. This is the tower house kit that Branch Line Trains Laser Art used to sell for an ungodly amount of money. Which I managed to, this one's actually on my layout. This is actually a picture of on my layout. It's on my layout. It has an added sign. This is the Grace L. Ferguson Home for Wayward Girls in Finishing School. God knows what goes on inside there. But this is a laser cut kit. There's lots and lots and lots of laser cut parts and funky windows and lots of peel and stick stuff. And you can see it has all kinds of fun details, and it's got this side porch and this tower, which we're going to take out. You can see it there sort of, and it's there around the back. And there's more tower over here. I don't have any really good pictures of the tower apparently, but you can see there's all kinds of things here to be modeled that are complicated. So I'm going to use this without actually taking it out of the layout and measuring it with a ruler or anything. We're just going to look at it and say, oh, we need windows about this big. Therefore, the walls are going to be about that big. And we just need to put all that together. And we're just going to do, you know, usual seat of the pants modeling. So, and the basis for this was, a lot of these old houses were actually out of catalogs, and you could pick different types of windows and design. And I thought, well, what if you picked, I like everything sort of general design, but I don't want the tower. We don't have anybody to lock up into it, so we don't need a tower. So take the tower out. And okay, so one of the things of this kit is, yeah, it says it's O scale, but it's compressed. There's no way it's the dimensions it is with the full width of floor, ceilings, the distances in between, etc., with all the width of walls, etc. It's just not, you know, you can take, you know, you look at it for a while, you just begin to realize, yeah, these floors are a little too close together for these windows, and it doesn't make some entirely good sense. So we're going to start from scratch, which is oddly enough what I do. And we pull out of the filing cabinet a selection of Grant Line windows. We've got a nice Victorian entrance door. We have some nice windows. And, well, we need this wall. We need that wall. Looking at the model on the assembled model on my layout and saying, well, this has to go around this way, that has to go that way. We need this much space to make these windows right. It makes sense. And we'll trust Grant Line on their dimensions of their windows to be actually what they say they are. but they need to be spaced accordingly. And the fun part here, of course, is going to be, you'll see, these are round, and you have this double arch. Cutting out curved sections, you know, we have enough trouble cutting out rectangle or holes in our clapboard. Well, that's nice. I don't know who's calling me at this time of night, but we're not going to talk to them. Anywho, probably my son calling on an emergency. Oh, well, he'll figure it out. So we have curved sections. You know, cutting out curves is not easy with a scalpel or an X-Acto knife or whatever you're using, but we're going to do it anyhow. These, fortunately, actually are square underneath of it. They're rectangular. This, I've lost the side panels and framing. We'll just make new panels and side panels and framing. Okay, so that takes care of 3 walls. There's that entrance wall. It was on the porch. This is where the tower wall used to be. And this is the next side wall. And we'll go around the back, make everything come out even. There's a little back porch that bounces out, entranceway, other 2 side walls on the opposite wall. And here's the front wall. And of course, you know, clapboard doesn't come in this width by any stretch. So these are all glued up pieces. Various sizes, scraps, 3.5 inch or even 6 inch, 7 inch clapboard. I have some larger stuff, and we just glue it up, cut it out with a utility knife, straight edge, and lay it all out and look at it and make sure, okay, do we have enough walls? Do we have the right walls? Do they actually line up? Are they the right heights? Are they going to marry together cleanly? Because that's going to be the fun part later. And over here, we have this bay window. Okay, so Grant Line doesn't sell bay windows. You have to make a Grant, you know, you got to make this. But this is made out of 4 of these window castings. So yeah, putting these 2 together, well, it's not too hard. You file off, sand off the pieces on the sides here, join them together. Well, at the time I did this, I actually still had some methylene chloride, which you obviously can't get anymore. You're stuck with the nasty smelling methyl ethyl ketone now. And it is nasty smelling. I was using some today. But then you got to put this bevel to this side over here, which requires sanding block and beveled corners and sanding and beveling and sanding and fitting and sanding and fitting and sanding and fitting until you get it right. And I found, of course, you need a little former on the bottom and the top to assemble this as a unit. So we get this together. It's not too bad. The first iteration on it, at least, looks like this. So we trim everything, try to get it lined up as best as possible. We have to fill in and clean up all these joints later. But the basic assembly is what it is. It comes together pretty cleanly, not too terribly difficult to do. You just have to be patient and try to remember that trigonometry that you learned, or geometry, planar geometry that you learned some year in college if you were forced to suffer through it. And it comes together decently. And from the inside, you can see, yeah, I added a piece of styrene in the middle here just for reinforcing that joint to make it a little stiffer. These are actually came out pretty close, but a lot of methylene chloride. And then these get glued to the 2 formers that actually slot right into the recesses in the back of these Grant Line castings, but that holds it together. And this is glued together with some goo and some CA and some threads, and it's like a rock when you get done with it. But, you know, the fun part, of course, will be glazing these later. You can imagine what that's going to be like. That will generate considerable amounts of colorful language. But this is set up, and then you have to cut out the hole for that front where this is going to go. And I've left this shelf here just to make it easier to handle from the inside of that wall when I assemble it. because that'll give me something to reinforce it from the inside. And I'm all worn out, so I'm going to stop here tonight. I'm exhausted. That's it. Jim, you've worn me out.
Well, this is your first night back, so we'll forgive you. I mean, it takes a while to get back in the swing of things.
I need another month off. No.
Thanks so much. Anybody got questions for Martin? Martin, thank you so very much, sir. You take it easy now. Just relax. Call your son.
Yeah, I don't know who that was. I don't care.
Okay.
Probably somebody trying to tell me I won the lottery again.
So now, so now I won't say what I was going to say. So now I want to go to talk to Tom Farrell, who is scratch building his layout, and see what wonderful model he has for us this evening. Tom, welcome.
Thank you again for having me. And tonight I'm actually going to be working on the layout, which is, I haven't really worked on the layout in about a year, actually. I've been focusing on making structures. So what I'm basically doing is I'm going to punch a hole through the backdrop and connect the front third of the layout to the rear 2/3 of the layout, which is actually considerably larger than the front that you guys have seen over the past year and a half. So I'll give you a little overview to try and orient where exactly this is on my layout. And then I'll show you how I punched a hole in here and made a runaround. So these are rare shots because I always show composed shots in my layout. So nobody ever actually sees under the bench work or the ceiling. So they're in essence snapshots. But this is Shantytown over here. This is my covered bridge. This is what I call Brady's Bend. And this is where the tunnels are going to be, where I punch through that backdrop. So you enter the room by coming up these steps to your right. And this is the first thing you see. That is Shantytown, which it's about 6 months of work, and everybody's familiar, should be familiar with that if they've been watching the show. This is Brady's Bend. This was the first area I scenicked on my new rustic buff and old Gothic. And those tunnels are to the right of this. And to the left of this is the Monongah Coal Company and the town of Turtle Creek. So this basically, the front third of the layout is here, what I just showed you. And then it gets connected here, which will be a future mountain, a little freight yard here. And then there'll be a town down here. The next photo is me standing right here. Oh, no, the next photo after this one is me standing right here, looking the other direction. So basically that loop comes around, goes behind me, goes around, and then goes behind this wall. And key to me putting up this backdrop and finishing this and putting up the backdrop is finishing this concealed loop, which is behind the scenery here, behind this wall. So clearing off all the temporary structures that were sitting there. The covered bridge is to your right. Jim Kello's Dam is right here. This is the Brady's Bend here. So the object is to cut a hole in this wall. So the first thing I did is drill 4 holes. This is just masonite with the photo backdrop on it. Looking at the other side, there's the masonite. Then just with a crude saw, a drywall saw, I cut through this masonite like it wasn't even there. And those are big teeth on that saw. I considered getting out a jigsaw, but I tried this first. I mean, it literally just cut it like it was butter. And there's the hole and showing the bench work, which is a combination at this point of the, I can't pronounce it, Mami bench work and then my own bench work. It transitions right here. I test, these are under construction. They're early stages here, but I wanted to line it up, make sure that I had adequate clearance for the penetration through the backdrop. At this point, there's no bench work back there. If you see, that's just a hole. I did a little bench work. And there's some of the bench work. The layout is basically the bench work and 2-inch foam. So this is what I had to build to do this. I just took, this piece was in place, but I had to add this piece here and this piece. This is the piece of foam that I had to specially cut to fit out around this brace and in here. I mean, it's easy to work with foam. It took minutes to do this. And a surf foam, just grind away at it. Makes a lot of styrofoam. Then to the right of what I just showed you, I put additional bench work in there. This runs along the back wall behind the, there's the backdrop. This is about a 30-foot run. Put it in perspective. The idea is if there's a problem, I can reach my hand up in here and get the problem. I am going to put a guardrail here. I was looking for foam glue and nobody seemed to have it. And I found this Loctite all-purpose power grab glue that's compatible with foam. A normal construction adhesive will melt this closed cell foam. This stuff, I have to tell you, works perfectly. It really does grab. I didn't have to put weights on it or anything. It just, I mean, it's not going anywhere. And I did this in several pieces, about 4 pieces, because it was a very complex number of components here. So there's 1 piece, 2 piece, 3, 4 pieces, all specialty cut, really. And then there's so many ways to put down track. My way is I take rubber cement and I put it down on the closed cell foam. Then I also put rubber cement on the back of the cork. I put several layers and then I just pin it down. The reason I use rubber cement is it seems to adhere very well to these two different materials. Later, when I put in the track, I use contact cement, a non-water soluble contact cement, so that when I put down the ballast, which has Elmer's glue and typically Woodland Scenic cement, it's water-based. I don't want it to dissolve my track off the cork, so I use a waterproof glue for that. So there's the pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are, it's sort of a little distorted. That's not a very tight turn. Actually, that's a 24-inch radius, 48-inch diameter, technically. It's a nice easement there. Another shot from the front of the layout. I use these push pins to hold everything in place. After a couple hours, I usually let it sit there overnight, then I pull the pins out. Got to have a lot of pins when you do this. I'll put guardrails here so that the trains don't, if there's a derailment or some issue, they don't fall to the floor. Wanted to show a minute here how I solder my rail joiners together. This was the setup to install the flex track. This is going to be pushed down to that area that you just saw down here. If you what you're seeing in that right now is this section. I added 2 pieces of flex track here. I soldered the flex track onto here, then I'll push it into place so I don't have to do contortionist to put in flex track here. If that makes sense to you. But I wanted to show you my soldering rig. So what you just saw is this. I added this flex track and 2 rail joiners. When you're soldering, especially, I like a lot of light. So I bring this light over. I invested in this Weller soldering rig. I got to tell you, this is one of the best investments I've ever made. I used to use those inexpensive soldering irons. They used to come from Radio Shack, they're real cheap. And this, you can set the temperature. I set it to 850 degrees. I bought this soldering stand so that when this is hot like that, I have a place to put it. This is a little soldering sponge. I just put water in there. And there's 2 types of rosin that I use. So my drill is I get this up to 850 degrees. It'll go hotter, but that's what I do, 850F. I wipe the tip onto the sponge. I dip it. This is a tinning solution, like a powdered solder. And now I have a very bright tip. It's oxide free. It's totally tinned. And I use this flux for the track itself. And this is a thin, just a thin solder. So the key is to have a good physical mechanical joint when you solder. If you don't have the rail joiner perfectly 50-50 here, and you don't have this flat, everything's got to be mechanically perfect before you solder. So you try to minimize these gaps. So you push the rail down, get it as tight as you can. This is going behind scenic board. So the track has to be, even though it's straight as an arrow, it has to be, every joint has to be perfect because I don't want any problems back there. So I've got my rail joiner 50-50. I've got these, they're not kinked, flat, or lifted. They're perfectly perpendicular to one another. And then I solder it. And well, that's about as good as you can get. That's a nice flow. It's silver. I'll go back and I'll knock the top of this off. I'll just hit it lightly with a fingernail file, and then I'll polish it out so that there's no, that it's smooth, so it won't capture dirt or anything. But that's what you're looking for. All silver, no cold joint, completely across the rail joint. I'll go in and I'll file that so that's perfectly flush, even though that would work just fine. So, again, soldering is all about a good mechanical joint. Get everything nice and hot. You just have to touch and go when it's that hot. Otherwise, you'd melt everything. Clean it, clean the tip here, dump it in the flux, tin it, have this ready to go on your track. You get joints like that every time. I mean, you just can't miss. That's all I have for you this evening.
Does anybody have any questions for Tom?
No structure.
I think you did a great
Yeah. Well, it's scratch building a layout, so not every night's a structure, right?
Not every night's a structure. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Well, now let's turn to Steve Sherrill, and he has got something that I think is really going to be of interest to a lot of people. So, Steve, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. looks like tonight was an O scale night, and we're just going to continue on with that. Tonight, I'm going to talk about On18. I want to thank Greg Cassidy for his help today. He's going to be showing my pictures when I ask him to. I built a little layout, a complete layout in On18. Greg, if you'll put up that first picture, please. A lot of people want to know, well, tell me about On18. How big is it? You know, just tell me something about it. So here is an On18 Shay in between two On30 small diesels. So you can see how small it is. Go ahead and put up the second one, Greg. Let me see what that says. Okay. Now, I said, this stuff is this small. How's it going to look if it was on a regular, real On30 layout next to the O-scale buildings? So I set it on my railroad. Obviously, since it runs on an N-scale track, it's not going to be fitting on the track exactly. But you can see that, yes, you could get away with that.
No, Jim. Jim. No. Not Jim. No. Yes, Jim.
Huh? I don't know what that was. Anyway, you can see that it would go right on a regular layout. So go ahead and put the third picture up. Now, one of the things that I got was 3D printed locomotives from Carroll County Designs. The Shays on the left and the right, and in the middle is a Nomi streetcar that I'm kind of messing with. I don't know what I've got there, but anyway, it runs. And I believe the next one, the next picture, I tested all of these locomotives, well, the drive units, to make sure they ran. And I was absolutely amazed at how well these things run. Now, these are power trucks, power units that are $20. So this is a very, very economical way to get into an O-scale narrow gauge if you wanted to go in that direction. There is equipment coming out practically every day from different makers with 3D printers. You just have to go on eBay or Facebook or some of the other sites, Micro Madness, Small Layouts, things like that, to see what is available. Go ahead on the next one, Craig. All right. Can we get that a little bigger or not?
No, sorry, that's it.
No, that's it. Okay. I hope everybody's eyes are good tonight. So I came up with a track plan. And you can see that's a pretty small piece of wood there. Well, it's 9 inches by 30. It's literally a bookcase shelf. Now I went in the back room there, and my wife had a bookcase and she wasn't using it. Now she's 1 shelf short. I hope she doesn't find out, but you know, that's just, maybe I'll make another layout and she'll be 2 shelves short. But so I came up with a little track plan. I laid the track down, and the whole time I kept testing everything to make sure it ran. And then if we go on the next layout, I started figuring out where I was going to start putting stuff. And so this happens to be in-scale roadbed that I just used for an outline of a station I put in. Now, I was going to have a platform come off the track into the front part of the station. You'll see that when I show the finished layout. So what I did, I laid that out before that, you can see there's road bed, and all the track is Atlas N scale. Okay, so it's like $5 a stick for 30 inches long. And the layout had used 3 sections. So I had $15 in track, okay? And it's on the roadbed, and I forget how much that was. That wasn't very expensive either. But then after everything was down, I spray painted everything black. And after I spray painted it, I went ahead and cleaned off the tops of the rails. So go ahead to the next one, Greg. So here's the station. It's almost in place. I put coffee stirrers down. They haven't been stained yet. And so I put them down to see for clearance how close I could get them to the track. Now remember this track, well, I didn't tell you, but this track is 4-inch radius. 4-inch radius. Very, very tight. You can't imagine how tight this is. And I did have easements, believe it or not. See, Tom, I had easements into 4-inch radius even. You can do that. So that's what we had. Now go ahead to the next one, Tom. Greg. Now, because I like to have my track level, like it was laid in dirt or just laid on this type of ground, I go ahead and cover everything. Now in this layout, I covered it with Sculptamold, I'm sorry. Sculptamold. And I built up some of the corners, and you can see the corners are kind of look like they're a little bit bigger, a little bit higher, a little bit more of a corner type of effect. And you'll see what the result of that was later. But this gave me a nice surface. Okay, go to the next one. All right, now you can see what we have. The station is kind of in place. I put some ballast down. Now, I had some paint that I had the same color as the Woodland Scenics earth color, but unfortunately I left it in the shed for the winter and I could not get it to thin out. So I put it on anyway, what the heck, you know, I had plenty of time. But it was starting to take shape, and I always put everything down first with alcohol, straight alcohol. And that makes everything stay in place. It also helps when you put your ballast down with your glue. So I had a medium brown Woodland Scenics ballast and some cinders in there. So next picture, please. All right, now you can see what we got. If you look at the corners, you can see they're kind of erased. They may not be obvious yet, but they're even more obvious when we get more scenery on it. Now, I wasn't quite satisfied with the ballast. So I had some rock that I got, very, very, very fine rock that I got from the other side of the, up at Horseshoe Curve. It was only, as they come down the curve and through that cut, there was a side of a hill. And we climbed that hill and got a bag of that stuff. And after 20 some years, I still have some left, but it's the best you've ever seen if you want to use it around for rocks, little rock talus and things like that. You'll see, you get a closer view, I think, in another picture. Go ahead and now wait a minute. You can see how small this is. This is my operator's desk on my railroad, and you can see it's on top of the operator's desk. And the door can still open. So that's how small this layout is. And you can see the 4-inch radius. And because it has a little swale, we get a little variation in the run. So go ahead, Greg. Let me see what we have on the next one. Okay, well, we've got some movement now. This whole time, I always test my locomotives all the time. to make sure that if there's any problems, I can catch them. Okay, Greg, next one. I think they're all going to be small for some reason. Okay, well, good. Now you can see the rock. And that was just, I just wanted to put that down there. There's a little variation, a little different. This is all clumps, various grasses. And what I found in modeling is you can buy any green from more than one manufacturer. It'll be a different shade of green. It's just like brown and anything else. So I buy as many as I can, a bag, and then mix them. But these are all put on blenders. The clumps are blended. I put 2 or 3 colors together and get a blender. My blender costs $10 at a yard sale or something, and you have to get one with a metal spinner so it will cut the stuff and really grind it up. Okay, go to the next one. All right, here I am with most of the scenery down, most of the covering down. We still have more scenery to put down. The switch here is a Pico 9-inch radius switch. So that's like really broad compared to the 4-inch curves. So go ahead and put the next one.
Steve, I'm afraid that's the last one I got.
Oh, okay, good.
Sorry.
Now, that's the last one. So, well, I'm going to show you some things on the railroad itself. First off, again, we're going to show you the different sizes. That's ON30 flat car with an ON18 flat car on top. Same manufacturer, by the way. Identical, except different gauges. Now, not only did I put power, but I made it battery powered also. So if we look at so this is battery powered. And what I found in this, when you're dealing with N scale stuff, is the weight. You have to put a lot of weight on this because these 3D prints are so light. So this layout is self-sufficient. It needs absolutely no power from anybody. So I went to Michael's and got a backdrop. It was just something they had there. And so I just put it up to, cover the blank space. Unfortunately, just a minute, hang on. I have sound, but once I put it in, I didn't realize it was diesel. So anyway, it's a diesel sound, but I can always turn it off. So that's the good thing. Now this is going to also be a testimonium on our table for the scholarships. And I'm hoping to get some interest to the layout and to talk to people about new tracks.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
I thought ON30 had O-scale bodies on HO mechanisms.
No. No.
What is ON30 then?
It's 30 inches between the rails. So if you have 48, you're going to have something. If you scale it down, it's about 20% less.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Steve. The way I understood it, if I made an ON30 boxcar,
yeah,
the wheels and everything would be HO. The wheels.
Yes.
The body of the car would be O scale.
No, well, it's still going to be 148, but the dimensions are different. I believe it's what, 8 feet wide, the cars? The manufacturer dictated the width in a prototype.
So you're saying it would be smaller because it's narrow gauge to start with?
That's correct.
Like EBT, a boxcar is smaller than a Penske boxcar.
That's correct. That's correct.
So okay, so this has been, I'm probably the only dumb one that didn't know this. So what you're really doing is putting an ON3 boxcar body on top of HO trucks.
No. This car.
ON30 started in the 1970s using HO scale track and mechanisms. And people did indeed take HO scale locomotives and put O scale cabs on them. Today, things like Bachmann, some of theirs actually, like their trench locomotive, does indeed use an HO frame and motor. But most of the Bachmann locomotives were built from scratch. They happen to be HO gauge, but the bodies are scaled to approximate narrow gauge equipment of the late 19th century, 25-foot long boxcars and I guess about 8 feet wide, maybe a little narrower.
So let me go back. Let me go back and see if I understand this. I'm a scratch builder.
Yeah.
I'm not buying Bachmann. I'm ready to run or anything. I'm a scratch builder. What I understood ON30 to be is I would get some HO trucks that I already have, put down some HO track that I already have, and I would build an O scale body and put it on top, and that would be ON30.
Well, you can do that, but the HO track, the ties are too short and too close together. So they now manufacture ON30 track with appropriate tie size and spacing. Similarly, the HO scale trucks, the wheels are really kind of small. And so there's such a thing as ON30 trucks. Bachmann manufactures them, and they have wheels that scale out at like 30 to 36 inch diameter, which is, considerably larger than what you get if you measure an HO scale wheel with an O scale measure. So yeah, plenty of people do use HO scale track, myself included, because I had so much of it. But when I go to scratch build an ON30 car, I use the Bachmann trucks, which have the larger wheels, for example.
But do you put an O scale boxcar cab on? No,
I put it's narrow gauge, so I build it to narrow gauge dimensions, not a standard gauge boxcar, because the overhang is way too great.
So therefore,
like was just mentioned, the East Broad Top was, I think, the only narrow gauge railroad that had the capacity to take standard gauge cars and swap the trucks underneath them so that they could pull a standard gauge car on their 3-foot gauge railroad. And if you see the photographs of that, the overhang is amazing. The boxcar overhangs the trucks and the track by a large proportion, and then compare it to a narrow gauge boxcar, and it's much more proportionate. The width of the car is narrower, the overhang is much smaller.
Now EBT was running 36.
Okay, hold it, guys. Let me try one more time here. There is ON30. There is ON30 and there is ON30 fine scale. Those are my definitions. ON30 fine scale would use the correct wheels, the correct track, the correct scale locomotives. Everything would be perfectly scaled for ON30. ON30, at least when I first heard about it, my interpretation was, and see if this is right, HO trucks, because way back then there were no fine scale ON30 trucks that I'm aware of. And instead of standard gauge box cars, I would use an ON3 boxcar and put it on those HO trucks, and that would be ON30. Is that correct?
No.
Technically, ON30 just refers to the gauge that it uses HO scale track, which happens to work out as a 30-inch gauge. And after that, you use HO equipment, scratch build equipment, kit bash equipment. As long as it's 30-inch gauge, that's ON30.
I want to share screen a second. If it'll do it. Let's see.
What's that?
Let me see. Or no, I just want to, hold on.
Greg, you still there?
Just spotlight me. I want to just show them this.
Greg, can you put up like the first, second photo?
Because I have no idea.
Yeah, Tom's
There
showing
you
the
go.
comparison first. Let him finish first.
Okay.
Jim, there's a standard O scale box car, right?
Yep.
Oh, and on top is a Bachmann ON30 box car. See the huge difference in them?
Yep. And so what you're saying is ON30, everybody would be using the smaller boxcar on HO trucks. Is that what you're saying?
No, well, theoretically you could use HO trucks, but we have narrow gauge ON30 trucks that have larger wheels.
Right.
So in the very
that is ON30.
In the very, very beginning of time, when they started ON30 in the 70s, you would use there was a lot of HO stuff that was used. But with Bachmann came on board with all their stuff, we got much more accurate with our wheels, our trucks, our size of the cars, our locomotives, everything just kit bashed, put together.
What about
and as Jim mentioned,
are the structures smaller than O scale structures?
No.
No.
Well, no,
Well,
but
you can compress them to make them more size friendly, but the doors are O scale, or 1/48 scale doors, 1/48 scale windows. The figures are standard O scale figures.
We tend to make the structures smaller, but they're still an O scale. Is our little game. That's our little game in narrow gauge.
Now, see, this is what initially confused me last week. And after I did some research, I found out a little bit more about it. But at first, I thought it was running O-scale trains on an N-scale track. And that was literally what it was.
N-scale
with O-scale structures and O-scale scenery. But it's much more than that, apparently.
There's N-scale does not enter into ON30. It enters into what Steve's doing on ON18, I think he calls it, which is N-scale track with O-scale locomotives. You can't confuse gauge with scale.
Right. Yes, you're right. I misspoke. ON18 and ON30, but still,
it's always O scale.
I was picturing a very giant, boxcar or locomotive on a very narrow gauge track for the purposes of tight radius or any other reason why you might need to implement that. But is it more than that?
For the remember, ON30, the whole idea is to model narrow gauge in O scale.
So it's specific railroads that use that.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there were very few railroads that actually were 2.5 foot gauge in the United States. Most of them were 3 foot gauge, but it's a compromise because HO track and switches and so forth is plentiful and relatively affordable. That it was an affordable way to get into O scale narrow gauge.
So it's in no way a leg up for the modeler to condense their space or have better track layouts. It's just another way of modeling actually correctly what you see in the real world if a railroad happens to use that gauge.
Except you can indeed use much tighter radius than you would use in standard gauge O scale, and that works because narrow gauge railroads had very tight radius.
The whole idea of ON30 and Steve's ON18 is that when you're physically modeling structures and things, you're at O scale. So it's easy on the eyes and it's easy to add an enormous amount of detail, much more than you could ever hope to do in HO or N. And
how about let me ask this. Is there anything from a modeler's, and this is definitely geared toward you, Tom, is there anything from a modeler's perspective, in your opinion, that would be out of gauge or out of scale if we modeled this particular scale?
Using another scale.
you talking about gauge or scale? Oh, everything
the scale of the buildings around it, the scale of the scenery.
They're all absolute. Everything I do is absolutely O scale and would be perfectly at home.
Yeah.
My size O gauge like this, right? And
all the buildings on the little layout are O scale.
All my buildings are absolutely O scale. There's no compromise. Although we as a group tend to make smaller buildings, but they're still an O scale. But they can get quite large. I'll show you. Hold on. I have some large buildings. You know, this is 17 inches tall. Okay, that's full on O scale.
Right.
So don't confuse gauge with scale. That's all.
Now, if that was a real railroad, they wouldn't have a tower that big. They wouldn't need one that had, they would gauge that or scale that down rather.
Well, this is,
if you were in Durango or Chama, it would look a lot like that.
That is the one. Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
you're getting to my question. Yeah, there it is.
This is the Durango Tower to scale from the actual prints I got from Tim Molina. This is exactly the Durango coal tower. Exactly.
Right. Now, but 36 and remember now, they had some full locomotives out in Colorado. They were standard gauge locomotives that they had that they put on narrow gauge.
That's correct. The Denver Rio Grande Western's late steam locomotives in many cases were standard gauge steam locomotives that had their frames narrowed to run on 3-foot gauge track. And they're rather interesting looking locomotives because they have large boilers on narrow gauge frames.
I have a Bachmann
They're
engine.
rare, incidentally, in the model community because they've been modeled by a few companies who sold them at extremely high prices, and they don't fit around the radius that the Bachmann equipment will run. So,
here in America, we don't model 30-inch, but you go to Australia, places like that, they have 30-inch that was almost mainline, and so, we just don't have that, and I don't think I've ever really seen a 30-inch locomotive, personally, except in the models.
South America also.
Hawaii.
Some of the Bachmann prototypes are 2.5-foot gauge, and they were in South America.
Yeah, South America also.
So let me ask, since I made a fool out of myself with ON30, obviously I don't understand what ON30 is. What is ON18? It is ON18, as I understand it, is in scale track is N-scale mechanism, wheels, motors, that kind of thing, mechanism. On what? O-scale? What?
Right, on O scale.
I'm with you, Jim.
It's not that hard. What is so hard about this?
It's
There's gauge.
confusing when you say N gauge and HO gauge. We're modeling in O scale, which is one scale. What he had the two box cars, they were the same scale, but one was just a smaller car. It's like out on the highway, you got a Lincoln beside a Volkswagen. They're both the same scale.
These are both.
We're doing ourselves an injustice by talking about N scale track and HO track. We're in O scale, and so you're setting your rails at either 36 inches apart or 30 inches apart or 18. Let Steve inches apart. But it's the scale. It's in that scale. It's scale.
Yes. You're confusing gauge with scale.
I think that's the only thing that confused me. If I would have heard it as O scale, however, a narrower gauge within O scale, and instead of being called N scale, I probably would have never had this problem initially.
Right.
Yeah, I think
that's some people use N scale just for their convenience, and they don't because they don't want to hand lay it. If you were hand laying any of those gauges, it would be O scale set at those particular gauges you wanted.
Right.
Yeah, that's what the
Now that
names
you
are.
word it like that, it makes complete sense. Yeah.
The name ON3 means O scale narrow gauge 3 foot. ON30 is O scale narrow gauge 30-inch gauge. ON18 is O scale narrow gauge 18-inch gauge.
Right. So let me ask you this. When you say O scale for ON18, how long is that boxcar?
It's 1/48 of life size.
It's
it's probably going to be a 12 or 14 foot length.
Yeah, it's
10 to 14.
And also, is that an attribute of everything incorporated in the diorama or the layout? Everything, period, except for the gauge of the rails.
Everything's O scale. You could have a gigantic building 4 feet in length, 2 feet high in O scale on an ON18, and it wouldn't make any difference.
It would be exactly the same structure.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
The only thing that's varying is the gauge of the rails.
Well, no. Well, wait a minute. I'm still confused. I may be the only one, but I'm still confused. The structures, the people, everything on my layout is O scale.
Right. 1/48.
That's everything is that, right? Okay. So I want to go OM30. Instead of using my standard O scale track, I need to use the equivalent that Bachmann makes that comes out to be basically in scale diameter.
No, that's ON18 you're referring to.
Yeah. Talking about N scale, it's the gauge.
Okay. I understand it is the gauge.
So ON30.
But wait a minute. Okay, let's move on because obviously I'm the only one that is not what I think. And I could be crazy, but I think what I'm saying is people who are not building ON30 or ON18. I don't think they understand, as I don't understand, what you all are trying to communicate.
Well, I do have one last question. It would be if you are narrowing the gauge of the tracks, the two rails, the distance between the two, does that mean that for an O scale train, you also have to make the wheels smaller to be able to perform on that track? So the wheels might be the only thing not in scale, or are they the same O scale wheels?
The wheels are scaled. Tom, show him the Bachmann boxcar.
Yeah,
That just seems very difficult to make an O scale
well, just let me
wheel
remember-
run on an N scale
just-
track.
let me.
The N scale one is a hard example because it's so small.
Well, then we'll
Let's
do
stay with
ON30.
ON30 for
is
the
fine.
moment.
For an example, ON30 is perfectly fine, but
And you look at the wheels on there, and those wheels are scaled to be an appropriate diameter. So they're actually a little bit bigger than HO scale wheels. If you run ON30 with HO scale wheels, the wheels look a little small, the car sits a little low. Plenty of people do that because it's convenient, but that Bachmann boxcar that Tom's got on the top has got scale size wheels, scale size flanges. They're not fine scale, but they are, they're not Lionel type flanges either.
and the truck width and length is the same as well to
The trucks,
work
if you
with
set
those
them
radius.
side by side, if you set it side by side with an N scale or an HO scale truck, you will find that the distance between the axles is slightly longer than an HO scale truck. And there Tom is showing you an O scale
Interesting.
standard gauge truck compared to an ON30 truck.
And I could get an HO car. Let me get one. There.
Yeah, yeah. If you've got an HO scale truck. Also, incidentally, while Tom's doing that, it turns out that 18-inch gauge is prototypical. Google it, and you will find that there were railroads in England and in Wales built to 18-inch gauge for mining and for industrial. They're really neat.
United States too. There's a lot of industrial usage.
Oh yeah, I won't argue that at all.
Here's an HO. I don't have an HO boxcar handy.
Yeah, turn it upside down so you can see the trucks side by side.
Yeah, so they would run on the same track. I can run this.
Right. They're the same gauge, but notice the distance between the axles is not the same.
And
And the wheels are smaller.
Yeah, the side frames are larger on the ON30 than on the HO.
Right.
Yeah, look at the size of
a little to your left.
Yeah, here we go. Let's see here. It's reversed, that's why. So
Now, here's the kicker. If you brought a Lionel car down, which is supposed to be O scale,
I have one.
An Atlas, you'd say, well, that's not O scale.
This could go on forever.
There's a Lionel. Fortunately, I own everything in the planet. Here's a Lionel car, right?
Yep.
So they're the same physical size, but the trucks are, one is toy-like and one is scale.
Are they the same width? They're not the same width, are they?
No, the Lionel is not strictly 1/48th of life size.
We call it O scale, O gauge, but it's not. I don't know what it is.
It's gauged to 5 feet, I believe.
Yeah, it could be. I thought they were the same width. Let's see. They're the same width. Yes.
Oh, well, that's an Atlas. That's not a Lionel car, is it?
The K line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Lionel's going to be different. And O27 is even different yet.
So how come smaller the HO?
And we're not even talking about SN3.
I don't have any S scale. I've got everything else.
But just remember this, everything here is O scale. Okay? It just happens to use N scale to run on. That's all.
Correct.
There's nothing else N scale on here. If it is N scale, it will scale out to something less in O scale, because obviously it's what? One's 148 and the other's 260 or whatever it is.
There's a, can you guys all see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is scale, O scale, standard gauge track sitting next to ON30 track. Is, I don't know.
Now, see, that is exactly what I wanted to see to be able to understand it. Thank you, Tom.
Well, here's something that you probably won't realize. let me get this so you can see it.
But I'm also realizing that this is something that could be beneficial for modelers as well as anybody who is modeling a particular prototypical line.
Yeah.
Look at this. Here is
because I guarantee you this that we need a segment on this, Steve.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you I am not the only dumb one out there that doesn't understand. And I understand scale and gauge. Believe me, that is not my problem. My problem is that when people talk about it's all O scale except for the gauge, what they're thinking is standard O scale.
That's correct. And that's why the narrow gauge guys are not really accepted by the O scale standard guys.
Yeah.
And that explanation needs to be put forward, because if I am I think I'm fairly knowledgeable O scaler. And guys, I'm telling you, if I didn't know it, then I am not by myself.
I don't know.
There's a lot of O scalers that do not understand this.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the people that I was on the editorial staff of the 48-foot O Scale magazine at the time when they put On30 on the front cover for the first time.
Yeah. And
the complaints that we got about that were phenomenal, because O scalers said, nope, that's not O scale. Get it out of here. Get it off the front cover. We don't want to talk about it.
Well, they're wrong.
Well, that was sold at that time, as I remember it. That was sold at that point. It's all O scale except for the gauge.
That's correct.
That is how I understood On30.
Yeah.
Well, you're right there. The only difference is the gauge.
But I'm telling you, you're right about.
But people took O scale, Tom, because people said, well, are the buildings the same? Oh, yeah, it's an O scale building.
It is.
Oh, yeah, water tank is fine. It's O scale. Oh, yeah, people are O scale.
They are.
And what they assume by saying OM30, with the gauge being, frankly, the track and the wheel sets, they took the rest of it as the same as the buildings, the people, and everything else. It was O scale.
Well, it is. Yeah, they're absolutely right. We do tend to build smaller buildings just out of habit for narrow gauge operations in general. But there's no law that says you have to do that. You can build full-size buildings, large buildings if you want. But, you know, the whole idea with the big...
That's what they thought about the cars and locomotive bodies too, Tom, is what my point is.
But if you see a prototype, I can do an internet search and show you a prototype of a standard locomotive and a narrow gauge locomotive, a prototype, and there's a huge difference.
Huge.
Huge.
Oh, God. You can't believe it.
I understand, but you know, I don't want to argue about that. I'm not trying to argue about it. I'm just telling you that I don't think that a lot of people understand this.
See, now, I have a problem with O scale proto. If they're the O scale, what is everybody else?
Well, if you talk from their standpoint, you're not a legitimate O scaler.
I found
now you guys are starting to sound like us S gaugers.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
It seems like it's a very niche community, and I'm sure that all the work is absolutely phenomenal. And most of the people that probably choose to model in this gauge or scale do phenomenal work. But I'm just wondering, is it going to do something possibly to entice new people to come to the industry? Is it difficult to do? Is it easy to do? Is scratch building and kind of building everything yourself almost a necessity within this, or is it quite easy?
Take a look.
That's a great picture, Tom.
Yeah.
This is a narrow gauge locomotive prototype. See, the people are all the same size. We don't run midgets on here. And
Yeah.
this is a standard locomotive. This is the huge differential. See the standard gauge track, the narrow gauge track. The narrow gauge boxcar, look how stupid this little boxcar would look getting pulled by this enormous locomotive. So
Let
this is
me ask you a question, Tom. The narrow gauge that you're showing there, that compared to O standard, that would be ON3, right?
yeah, this would be ON30.
That's
or
two.
No, ON3 is narrow gauge O scale.
Actually, the train you're showing there is a 2-foot gauge main railroad.
Yeah, but the idea,
That's the main central.
ON2.
the idea
But this is crazy. Seeing it in real life is completely different than when I see two models next to each other. Now that I see it represented in real life, it's, you know, it's also, it's very distant from anything I could have ever seen in my real life. So, but still, it's very nice to see that in real life represented in a photograph.
Some people who have the space actually put that on their model railroad, and we'll have some standard gauge O scale cars on a standard gauge track, so you can see that on the model railroad and appreciate how much smaller the narrow gauge equipment is.
That's exactly why I showed that photograph of my John Allen engine house with the standard gauge line in front of it. I park a standard gauge boxcar on there, and right next to it, I put an ON30 boxcar. So the first explanation I tell people is, this is an O scale layout that I model in narrow gauge. This is how large a full scale boxcar would be compared to a narrow gauge boxcar. It's just like this photograph.
So in actual operations in real life, they do modify the boxcars and the rolling stock to perform better on the narrower gauges.
They don't modify anything. They're made specifically for narrow gauge. This little boxcar has no business ever being given a set of trucks to run on a standard gauge. It never would happen.
I think that's what I meant by modification, but they build them specifically to run on narrow gauge.
Correct.
So even though it looks smaller,
it is.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah. In the 19th century, there were numerous manufacturers manufacturing narrow gauge railroad equipment.
Yep.
Passenger cars as well.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. Is an ON3 narrow gauge boxcar
they're
suitable for ON30 use?
If you change the trucks, yes, but normally the ON3 stuff is slightly larger.
Because it's 36-inch.
So
versus 30.
I have converted a few ON3 brass models to ON30 by putting ON30 trucks on there, but they're slightly larger cars. But they're still all in O scale, but they're just, the nature of ON30 is smaller stuff to run on tighter radiuses. That's why we call ourselves the black sheep. We're not necessarily rivet counters.
Okay, let me ask you this. Are there manufacturers who are producing ON30 correctly sized models?
Yeah, all of them are correctly sized. And
for
sometimes
example, San Juan makes the same box car that they sell as ON3 and ON30, and the only difference is the distance between the wheels.
And you can buy locomotives.
So they use the ON3 car.
Correct.
Okay,
so
but
their standard box car will scale out as 30 feet long. Bachmann's standard box car will scale out as 25 feet long. What they used were earlier prototypes to run on smaller model railroads.
Besides San Juan, who uses the incorrect scale for their model.
No, there's nothing incorrect about San Juan. They're dead on accurate, precise.
Well, if they're using OM3, I thought Tom just said that wasn't.
The ON3, San Juan's ON3 cars are rigorously to scale. And then because of the popularity of ON30, they just regauge their trucks and sell their cars as ON30 cars as well.
Correct. They're all in
That-
scale.
Okay, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
There are plenty of
Promise this
modelers,
is
you know,
the
who
last
model in
question.
ON3 and you know, they have to hand lay their rail, or I guess now there are some commercial manufacturers of O scale 3-foot gauge track. But in the old days, if you wanted to be ON3, you had to hand lay your rail, and that's why ON30 became popular. It's because you didn't have to hand lay rail; you could buy commercial track and commercial mechanisms.
Let me ask my question a different way again. Besides Bachmann, is any other manufacturer producing scale bodies for ON30?
Yes.
Not ON3 that they're using for ON30,
Yes.
but are producing, as Bachmann supposedly is or did, actual ON30 sized bodies.
Yes.
Yes.
Who is that?
There's a
Yoder.
brass locomotive you can buy in ON3 or ON30. It's a K.
Yoder.
Yeah, they're MMIs.
MMIs. It's about.
They do C19, K27s, K36.
You can order it. Yeah, K30.
Okay, so that's locomotive. I'm talking about cars.
Yeah, same. The San Juan, for example, you can get them.
Well, but that's
But
ON.
very
That's
few.
ON3.
Say the least. Very few.
They're not a lot, but I think Banta has some ON30 cars. There are a couple of commercial manufacturers, their kits, you know, either wood or resin, that are sold as ON30.
Let's take two steps back, and so you understand the nature. ON30 was basically developed to offer an inexpensive way to get into narrow gauge railroading in O scale. Historically, ON3 narrow gauge O scale equipment was typically brass, very expensive.
Yep.
And what Bachmann did 20 years ago, I forget the fellow's name that led the charge. He's since
Lee Riley.
Yeah, he led the charge and created all these locomotives, all these cars. He created a whole new segment that we call ON30. Now, people were fooling around with ON30 kit bashing, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the large commercialization of ON30 was done by Bachmann.
Right.
And and compromises were made to some degree in some cases, but we're always O scale, just different gauge. You know, locomotives that
The
were
last question I want to ask about this is the picture that you showed of I think it was a black and white photo, Tom.
Yeah.
The narrow gauge locomotive next to the standard gauge locomotives, both were steam, I believe. Did they have to hire jockeys essentially to run those locomotives? Because they seem so tiny.
You know, if you look at this cab, it's a full size height. Okay, like I joked in the beginning, we're not running midgets in here. This is a full size. It's a full size cab.
From personal experience, this June I rode in a narrow gauge steam locomotive cab, and I did not hit my head on the ceiling.
That is quite unbelievable. But look, I mean, I see what you mean by the cab.
Yeah.
But I mean, also, I guess it's narrow gauge and probably point-to-point operation, so you don't need the ability to run 200 miles or something on these locomotives, right? So that's part of it.
Here, look, see how large this cab is in proportion to the boiler.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I just think it's such a very narrow
Well, that's what
niche market,
it
but I
is.
love it.
I mean, in the game of model railroading, HO is the largest, then N scale, then O scale, then maybe S scale. Way down the bottom somewhere is ON30 and ON3. There's far more ON30 modelers than ON3 modelers.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of trivia on
And
that.
now we got ON18 to add to it.
Yeah.
That small engine that was in that black and white photograph is 2 foot in main. A little bit of trivia, it was very, very tight inside. So many times the engineer, when possible in nice weather, his upper torso would be sitting outside a bit on the windowsill.
Yeah.
The cab window, just for room.
Oh, get out of here.
Many 3-foot gauge locomotives, the cab was small enough that the fireman did not ride in the cab. He rode on the platform on the front of the tender.
Let me ask you all this. Do you think that this kind of a discussion would be beneficial on the show, just to open it up? I mean, as a regular part, because we don't have, if you notice, the scales that we don't cover narrow gauge really.
Oh, I think I do every week.
No, we definitely cover it. It's just that, like I said before, I think it's a very narrow niche. And it just depends on what we want to do with the show. I enjoy everything that I learn on this show, and I enjoyed everything I learned tonight, but is it something that will bring new people here? That I don't know.
Well, new people,
from my perspective, here's what I'm thinking. Is this part of HO, or is this part of O scale?
It's O scale.
Oh.
Scale.
The advantage, the advantage of ON30 is that you can use H or narrower type radiuses, and you can model an O scale, which is much easier on the eyes and much easier to get greater detail than N or HO. I mean, you see the work I do, it has a lot of detail on it. That's why I switched. I started with N scale in 1967. It came out 1965. I used N scale from 1967 to 2005. To my right, I have 95 locomotives. I moved from N scale to O scale because I was not happy with the detail that I am a scratch builder. And with O scale, it's far easier to get great detail on an O scale model than an N scale model. That's why I switched.
Well, perhaps that could be a good selling point for new people as well. It's much easier to learn how to paint or glue or, build, especially if it's a kit, something that's a little bit larger when you first get started. But you can also, if you use this scale, or you could build a layout on a fold-out table in your spare bedroom at your mom's house. So you get kids involved in something like this, and they could learn, the fundamentals.
What Steve's trying to do with his ON18 is demonstrate that you can run a narrow gauge locomotive in O scale and do it on a shelf and not hurt your eyes like you would with an N scale.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's just as important for children as it is for the older generation. When someone's first getting started.
I do too, particularly young people in an apartment.
Well, let me say this: you're not going to get the market has exposed people starting out to modern day railroading. That's the first thing you see is diesel.
Definitely.
That's what they see at the railroad crossing when Dad stops, and gripes because he has to stop. It's a diesel, and that's what the kids want.
Yeah.
And so if you're steam guy, you're probably old.
Gotcha. Well, listen, I hate to do it, but the show is running over, and it's my fault because I asked so many dumb questions. But I apologize for that.
There's no
So let's stop this. We can continue it if you want to later on after we terminate the show. But let's go ahead and finish this out. Thank you so much for doing this, Steve. Thank everybody for putting up with my stupid questions and so forth. But I'm serious. I think a lot of people, if you went to it, let me put it to you this way. If I went to an O-scale convention and started talking to the O-scalers that were in attendance, I think that I would have a majority of those people say OM30 is taking an O-scale boxcar and putting it on HO trucks. I really believe that.
Wrong on both accounts.
And that I think is an issue that, yeah, I'd like to see dealt with somehow on the show, because I do think that that's important if OM30 is ever going to be really accepted in the O-scale community. I think that the O-scale community needs to be educated, because I do think that that's important. Anyway, thanks so much, guys, for putting up with me. I appreciate it. And Phil, if we could run the caboose, we'll try to get out of here.
Phil's not here. I'll play it.
Okay.
We ain't that for narrow gauge, eh?
Thanks to everybody for coming tonight. We really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the show. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. Hope to come back again to see us. And until next Wednesday, happy modeling. Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Steve, did you put in